correct way. Well, I would like to thank our lecturers one more time, and I would also like to say that Emmanuel, you're also very welcome to answer some of the questions and to enter the discussion. Based on what I heard here from the three of you, I only need to tell you that I canceled all of my appointments for this evening, so I plan to stay here up till the midnight, something like that. So I hope that you're also available. No, I mean, I'm sticking to the timeline religiously, but I would really like to continue this conversation via other means. So my first question, or maybe even the comment and the question, would be something that I actually got in the Singularity University community while speaking about this webinar, and it was very interesting objection. One person said, the discussion that we are having about the ethics is not only connected with the AI, but it's much broader one, connected with the technology itself, because the problems that we are having currently with AI, we also had for some time now with the technology, with different parts of technology and the development of the technology. So I don't know if you agree with that, but what was interesting for me is that obviously the questions about the ethics and discussions spiked on the AI technology specifically. So this is an important question, why it happened with the artificial intelligence. What is the difference between AI and the other technologies which are obviously important, but not as important maybe in AI, or are having some other differences? Is it maybe because the AI is as Jean commented, in a way, general purpose technology with much broader consequences, so then we are kind of more motivated to comment it. So just for the start, I would like to hear the comment from one or two or even three of you.
Can we just start, or do you want us?
Yeah, please. Yeah. No, you can start. Who raises his voice is the first.
Okay. So I think yes, it is a wider discussion. Very much so. I'm putting my camera on for the sake of all of you, but I hate watching myself, so I will not look directly at the screen. It's really scary at a certain age to see yourself. Okay. The issue in terms of technology has been discussed in philosophy, at least, in terms of human-technology relations. The philosophy of human-technology relations, and in phenomenology, and what is nowadays known as post-phenomenology, as a much wider issue of how we experience ourselves in the world through objects. And a lot has been written about, exactly how that mediation, what that mediation looks like, and how it impacts on what it means to be human. But to give you a more concrete example, so, and I think it is important to put AI in that context. We are used, if we think of subject-object, so I'm the subject, I decide I'm holding this pen. What happens to this pen is up to me. This pen is my object. I mediate an experience through it because I can write thoughts, I can draw pictures while I listen to other speakers, I can make notes. So I am controlling the object, but the object carries some value for my experience because it's working, because it's pink, because my other notes are in blue, because I have a system. So these things are meaningful for me, and they play a role in my experience of the world. But what is happening with some technologies, and it's not only in the AI dimension, but it's more highlighted in the AI dimension, is that this relation between object and subject is being upended. If we look, for instance, at the Internet of Things, which is another 4IR technology that also uses AI, but that uses other technologies as well. This is a kind of technology that becomes the environment within which we experience ourselves. So it's not an add-on. it's not something that we manipulate. It is something that we are manipulated into. And that is the most dangerous kind of technology, because we immerse ourselves in it and it disappears because it becomes our environment. So, and in that sense, and if we keep on moving to super intelligence and all those very esoteric and maybe not so esoteric notions, the object-subject relation will change. Technology will be manipulating humans in the way that humans are manipulating technology. So yes, it is a wider context. One last comment, maybe. Very interesting book is the book by Andy Clark on natural-born cyborgs, making the statement that humans have always been cyborgs. We have always had technology as part of ourselves. From ancient times, we have tried to express ourselves through technology in some way. So to now start jumping up and down about superintelligence and all these things is maybe going overboard. But that's just one perspective. Okay, obviously I don't necessarily share it. Why now? Why is ethics now suddenly coming to the fore? I mean, philosophy and ethics of technology are old domains, in philosophy at least a century old, if not older. But why now? Because of the nature of AI technologies, because of its invasiveness, because of the danger that it poses to individuals in their most intimate lives and to collectives at the same time. The danger that it poses to our ability to remain human, our ability to be autonomous, for human determination. So that is, and our ability to embrace diversity. That is, I think it's simply the nature of the technology that has suddenly pushed everything out. But that it is definitely a wider conversation, obviously. And it's not only, we're talking about health technologies, we're talking about all kinds of, this is a problem. Very last thought, I promise, Archie, I'm sorry, is that I think we have to understand that in any science and technology innovation, ethics should be a critical enabler. What we have had wrong all along is to have ethics as an add-on, as an after the thought, or in terms of a kind of research ethics. Ethics is a critical enabler because it's part of what it means to be human, to be able to have conversations around ethics. So we should stop innovation. Ethics should block innovation only in the sense that if it is not part of the process, if it isn't part from the design, the development, everything, then the process should stop until it is part of it. The only time that ethics really blocks innovation in the bad sense is when it's an add-on, because then it wasn't part of the process, and then you throw out the baby with the bathwater. Okay, and that goes for all science and technology innovation, not just AI. Okay, I'll be quiet.
Great. Thanks, Sam. I think it's a wonderful answer. Ali, Reza, Jean, do you have anything to add?
Sure.
Yeah, please do so.
Yeah, just briefly, I think I would echo lots of the comments which Emma has made. I think it is part of a broader set of issues, but the emotive implications of some of the things we're actually experiencing with the use of AI, whether it's the way elections have gone in North America, okay, or whether it's the way the specter of automation and actual discrimination that we've seen with the use of AI. The stakes are very high. The stakes are very high currently, and when we look forward, in the way that Emma has challenged to do. And I think ultimately it challenges, and I'm just echoing something Emma has said, it challenges what it actually means to be human. So, a pre-modern Muslim philosophical definition of what it meant to be human matched an Aristotelian one, that the human is a rational animal. In Arabic, al-haywan, al-insan haywan al-natik. Okay, so it was shared an Aristotelian conception of human. Okay, so now, that's a seriously challenging conception of what it means to be human. Okay, yeah. artificial intelligence is more human than human according to the Aristotelian definition, right? So actually, not only does ethics is required for AI, and philosophy is required for us to have a proper development of and use of technology, a wholesome use of technology. A use of technology, which I said is really driven towards progress in the most human of sense. Actually requires for ethics and philosophy to progress as well. I think there's got to be, how we were talking about cultures engaging and benefiting from each other, but we should also see these technological challenges as a spur and as an impetus for ethical and philosophical deliberation. And it's actually quite promising in that sense.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I will connect it with my next question, which was actually maybe even the first question, and then directed first to Jean and then to the others. So listening and looking at this panel, so we have Latin America, we have Africa, fortunately great, and we have somebody speaking about the Islamic world. So my very fundamental question is on the level, do we as individuals and as a society even have enough awareness about the differences that we have between the cultures? Are we living in a society that are even conscious about, okay, there are different people, there are different norms, there are different values, and if we are not aware, and I'm a little bit assuming that we are not looking from my own perspective, very European-centric perspective, what can we do to at least as a first step raise that type of awareness? And this is something maybe also interesting to comment from the point of Latin America, who is obviously inheriting with the colonialism different approaches to the ethics from the Europe, and on the other hand, unfortunately, doesn't have the African blessing of not erasing all the indigenous people who could then bring their own values and cultures into the picture. So, Jean, what is your first opinion about it? And then I would, of course, like to hear the others.
Yes. So, for that question, I am a big believer in multilateralism and multiculturalism, in the sense that it is basic acknowledgement of reality. There's different people with different values, with different cultures, and even though you might believe that your truth is the truth, there's society. Society implies different perspectives. So, in terms of how can we build bridges, I think we need to reinvent multilateralism, especially in the last years, since 2016, but even before, where the multilateral system has been in question. Brexit, Trump, and all the populism and nationalism that is emerging. I think multilateralism is needs to be saved, because if we don't, then we're setting up the world for conflict. In terms of your first question, of why AI and not only technology, yeah, I agree. It's technology broader than AI, and as Emma said, these ethical questions are highlighted in AI. So what you said, it's a general purpose technology, and for example, biotechnology and genetic engineering. We have CRISPR. That's definitely ethical, has deep ethical implications. However, what is CRISPR? It is a biotechnology, but it is an AI-enabled biotechnology through the analysis of big data sets and big genetic data. So why AI is being highlighted? Because AI is definitely more pervasive, and it is already impacting every other technology. But if we see the trends, AI will converge as this, like AI in general will be almost synonymous with technology in the future.
Yeah,
And
I
it
think
is
that we might come even back to some of the things that you said, because I have some questions prepared even for those things. But just to give a chance to Emma and to Alireza to comment on this second question about the awareness and what can we do, and do we have it or we don't have it maybe at the moment.
Go ahead, Emma.
if you have something to comment. If you don't, it's no problem at all, of course. And just unmute yourself if you're speaking, Emma.
I said thank you, Ali, and I said I do have something to comment quickly. I think the answer to your question is yes or no, but it's a contextual yes or no. So in South Africa and in Africa in general to various degrees, yes, there is very much awareness of culture, very much deep awareness. And it's not only because of the colonial past in Africa, and specifically in South Africa because of apartheid. It is also a cultural, it is simply a cultural way of being in Africa, that you embrace your cultural identity in a particular way. And our children are very much, if I think of my own two boys, they are very much aware of this. If I look at my family in Europe, and I think of friends in Europe, and you know, I also have European citizenship. I'm not saying something against Europeans as such, but in general, no, there isn't the same kind of awareness. Where have I come across it? More to the east, Eastern Europe. In Eastern Europe, there's a pride in culture in some ways. I've seen it in some of those countries that remind me of the African way of being proud of where one comes from. But I think in general, you know, in terms of Eurocentrism, awareness of culture isn't a core factor there, except awareness of hegemony, acceptance, awareness of dominance, awareness of being better and knowing better, and knowing the only way. And you know, I say this with all love, but there it is. And then, so I think in terms of science, it's nowhere, anywhere in the world. It's not enough. Awareness of culture. So in terms of personal lives, in terms of politics and societal issues, yes. In terms of science, no. Science belongs to the West and to the North and to white men. Can there be awareness in scientific context? Yes, yes. Will it be easy? No, definitely not. Can it be done? Yes. We should just fight for it.
This is one of the goals of the Global AI Ethics Institute, and I have one good comment in the chat where Andre said, "I believe one solution to understand different cultures is to travel. Yeah, to travel more and to hang out more and to speak with different people like we are doing today." So, Alireza, did you want to contribute to this?
Sure. So I think when it comes to engagement with difference, I think difference is both overestimated and underestimated at the same time, right? So, for example, you know, so Islam is typically, Islamic ethics or Islam is contrasted with the West. But of course, scholars of religion would typically understand Islam as a Western religion. It comes from the same basin as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They're, you know, they have a common hereditary. So as scholars of religion would classify it as a Western tradition. Okay, but that's just an example of overestimating this difference as well as underestimating difference. When it comes to morality, ultimately, I'm an ethical, moral realist. So I believe there are universal ethical values which we can aspire to together. But I'm on board with Emma to say that we have to take into account, at least at the epistemic level, our cultural specificity and our fallibility, human fallibility here. Again, if we emphasize the difference between human rationality and superintelligence, one of those obvious differences is our fallibility. So through difference, we can overcome our fallibility in our own particular limits, through engaging with difference and hopefully come to better understandings. So I am absolutely on board with the ethic of this Global AI initiative. It's only through engagement with difference that we can learn to better our own understandings and better our collective understandings. And we need it. As we were saying, we need it.
Yeah, and I mean, what I would just like to underline what Emma said. It's not easy process, and it's usually a long-term process. So it's going to be interesting such short period of time, because AI development might happen very fast and might disrupt a lot of things in the next short term, let's say 5 to 10 years, which is usually not enough to to do educational and raising awareness projects. But okay, I have 2 or 3 big questions, like the first ones, but unfortunately we don't have time for them. So maybe I will just end with one short one for Ali Reza, which I noted down for myself. And excuse my ignorance, I would just like to know who are the, as you mentioned, Sharia jurists, basically. How many of them are? Because in the Christian world, you have like Vatican, you have Pope, and more or less that's it. You have one very clear authority. So what is happening in the Islamic world? And who are those jurists who are going to decide? Is it by the country, by the region, by some other factor?
Sure. There's thousands would be the short answer.
Okay.
Different schools, different dispositions within amongst Muslims have different authority structures. Typically, you would have this sense that there is no clergy in Islam, but there, of course, over time have developed schools of jurisprudence, and within those schools, you have people rising to particular authority, and how whose opinion is taken more serious than others. So we find, internationally, different Muslim communities referring increasingly to different centers of learning, which may be in Egypt and Al-Azhar, maybe based in Saudi Arabia, maybe based in Qom in Iran, or to much more local scholars who people have trust in, that these are people deeply versed in their tradition and hopefully versed with the problems that they're trying to address. And often that is the bigger challenge.
Wow, this is really interesting, and I can only assume what are the practical consequences of all of those differences. Because if you have 1,000 people who are interpreting something and saying what is right and what is wrong, for some company that is making a product and wanting to make something that can adapt to every possibility, then this is a complete new game changer and a completely new discussion and food for thought. So we are not going to address it now because of the time, but I'm going to kind of leave it hanging in our heads, maybe for some future discussion. So I would like once more to thank you all. It was very interesting for me. I would only want to check with Emmanuel if he wants to add something for the end of this webinar and to close it down.
Nothing to add that would be more interesting than the speakers have said so far. So thank you for all that, definitely. And I think that we've reached the goal of this webinar, and we've learned a lot, really a lot. And it's only the starting point of, I guess, further discussions that we will all have on that. And thank you so much for bringing all that into the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank all of our lecturers. Thank all our participants. We invite them all to follow us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, to contact us if they have any questions or comments. We are really more than eager to participate in this discussion, to share and to disseminate information. I can announce that we have in plan to organize additional webinar with the Responsible AI Alliance that we joined, and with Association Futures, which Philip Blanchard, which is here. So we are going to speak about a little bit more practical topic, and this is the AI and sports, and it's probably going to be with the name, is the AI or can the AI kill the mystery in the sports? So you can only imagine how many interesting discussions and questions we are going to cover with that topic. So I hope to see you on our next webinar, if not before. So thank you all, and goodbye for today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.